Hey, welcome back to the Speak to Freedom podcast. I'm your host, Anthony Trucks. Today's guest is Steph Saffer. Now, Steph is all about being impact ready. What does it mean to show up in your life and be ready for impact? Because here's the truth. You already are making an impact in some way. It's either conscious or subconscious. And if you are not aware of the impact you're making, you might be making the wrong one. And what is even worse is the one you are making, it's affecting you in seen and unseen ways. So if you can step back and take a look at your life and understand how to be impact ready by preparing intentionally for your day, for your life, and moving forward, you can avoid so many headaches, but also more than just the avoidance, you get to embrace happiness, joy, new experiences, better relationships. You get to experience a life you've been looking for because you're choosing to show up and prepare yourself to be impact ready. So in today's episode, I want you to dive in, listen in, open your head and your heart, and hear what Steph Saffer has to say. So let's get into the episode. Hello, we're back. Speak to Freedom podcast with another amazing speaker that you get the opportunity and blessing to listen to. And this is a person that has a great heart, and we're gonna unpack that heart. Steph, how are you doing today?
I am so good. I'm so excited to be here talking to you. I love talking to you.
It's always fun to talk to good people. I find that good people find good people, and for me, it's a good thing. I guess a lot of good there.
Absolutely.
That's the beauty of life. If you open up, kind of your mind to it, and I think this is a good thing that I have learned to do in my own life. I love humanity and its nuances. I ache it to Thanksgiving dinner. It'd be boring if your plate was just full of turkey. Like you're boring, right? So, but you gotta have like the dressing and like the greens and then the mashed potatoes and the gravy. Then it's like, so the color of life and nuance and different makes it amazing. So,
but the thing about you is that you insist on wearing all this duck gear on this video in front of me.
I didn't even realize.
And we're always ribbing each other about that stuff. But I was like, he did this on purpose, didn't he?
You know what? So my wife and I, we do track. And so before this, I had a whole day of kind of creating some slides and stuff for a presentation. And then we have a track workout. Literally just walked in the door 15 minutes ago I was running, I think we did 9 100-yard sprints with 90 seconds rest between. I was dying. I'm still sweaty right now. And this is just what I wore. And then sure enough, it's a duck shirt. So you're welcome. It's a duck football shirt. So I'm not going to apologize because I'm
always going to rib you for that one.
It's okay. We got to rock and roll with it. But let's dive into your kind of background. Here's what I like to start with. As a person coming and listening to you right now, they're automatically going, why should I listen to this person? What do they do right? So I'd love for you to share what your message is that you bring to the world. And then we'll dive into how you came up with that, how it came across your plate, and how you're delivering it to the world.
So my focus and my message, probably for the last 4 years, has been, how do we prepare as humans? How do we prepare to have the best, most positive impact that we can have in our sphere, whether it's in our families or our communities or in our work environments? And this all kind of came about because I was involved in a lot of different places of work. I live in Portland, Oregon. I was a spin instructor. I'm an acupuncturist. I was a coach. So I'm interacting with people all day long. And what I'm realizing is, God, people are so sort of tuned out to what kind of energy they bring into a space. They have no awareness. And they're wondering, why am I not getting what I want in my life? Why am I not seeing the results that I want in my life? Why am I not experiencing the joy and the fulfillment that I want in my life? And it was all coming down to the fact that at the very bare minimum, they really just had no idea what they were bringing to the table. There was not a lot of intention there. And so I started thinking about this idea of impact and how we create impact in our life, and the fact that there's really no roadmap to that. And I wanted to help teach people how to become aware of it, how to leverage it, how to have really positive, powerful impact. It's a game changer.
The fact that I think it's a good way to think of it is, people naturally have an impact. You can be aware of how it is and we're control of what it is, or it's going to happen haphazardly and it may not be a positive impact, but
and that's the thing, is it happens whether you want it to or not, baby. Like it's happening. Yeah. So if you aren't paying attention, you're just reacting, and life is happening to you. And I really want people to remember, man, you're powerful. Like you have agency. You can make a life happen for you.
I agree. Against all the crazy of what could be going on around you, there's always a sense of either you have helplessness or you have like power. And in my life, I grew up in a situation where I felt very helpless. Like the world told me, like, you have no control. And it wasn't until I got a sense of like, oh, actually, I can manipulate the world around me to my favor, or at least against the odds, and create a desired outcome. Then you start having that personal agency, which is a phenomenal gift. Where did this become, like, we'll call it a clear idea for you, right? Because this is something that most individuals are completely oblivious to. It's one thing to then be aware of it, a whole other thing to choose to lead others to it, though.
Yeah. Well, I think like most people, I've had a lot of challenge in my life. Everyone's has their fair share of challenge. Life is sort of the great equalizer that way.
Mhm.
But what I realized probably when in my early 20s is if I wanted to get some traction, if I wanted to create the life that I wanted, I needed to figure out what was in the way. And what I realized is that everything that was in the way had to do with me. It
Mm.
was a lot of what was in between my ears, the way that I
Yeah.
thought about things, my beliefs about myself. And there's people all over the world who are crushing it. They're making it happen for themselves. And what's the difference between them and somebody who's not getting to where they want to be? And I just realized that I needed to start looking at things like, no, I'm the one who's actually in charge. I'm the one who can take ownership in my own life so that I can create the outcomes that I want. So it started with me having some of these realizations myself when things weren't going my way, but then to observe it over and over and over again in a clinical setting with patients, and then
Yeah.
also in a client relationships as a coach, you really start to understand how deep this goes for people.
How does somebody start that process of looking though? Because to be honest, I tell people I am the common denominator in all of my problems. Either I created it or I'm
Mm-hmm.
allowed, right? But
Yeah,
that
very
is not an
similar.
easy pill to swallow. To do that, honestly, most times it means you have to admit, like, hey, you're not amazing at this. And while we go, I'm not perfect, right? When you face that, it's like, oh, this sucks. How does somebody step into that or see that? Could it be other people giving them feedback? Is it them just being very honest and transparent? What does that initial conversation look like?
Well, I think it happens in multiple ways. I think a lot of people get the feedback that, hey, you're not rising up. You're not showing up as your best self. And that can be a really hard conversation. That there's a lot of humility that happens there. But it also, I think, begins with the idea that there is the ability to take ownership in your life and not just be reacting all the time. So for
Mhm.
me, what I call it is, hey, we need to start to wake up to this idea of radical ownership. How can I take ownership of everything that's in my life right now? Whether
Mhm.
it's my thoughts, my feelings, my actions. And really at the end of the day, it was this for me. Nobody nobody's going to care about my life the way that I can care about my life.
Yeah.
So it's my responsibility to change the way that I think. I need to become a better thinker. It's my responsibility to deal with my feelings. Not everything that happens to us in life is our fault, but it's here now. So we have to take responsibility for it. We have to
Yeah.
manage it.
It may not be our fault, but it's our responsibility to do something to it because no one's coming to save you. No one's coming to do work for you. They may care about you deeply, but they care about that more in their process. So you step into it. So we get clarity. We see what's going on. What does it look like to actually start affecting change or creating impact? Like how did you come across this? Right. Cause I believe there's got to be a part of your life or a story that, you could tell where someone can go, oh man, I see what it looked like for her. Like that can be mirrored to me in a certain way also.
Well, I guess, back to your first question is like, where does this begin? I think even before ownership, it's sort of a waking up. It's an
Mhm.
awareness that happens,
Mhm.
right? When I was 7 years old, my dad passed away of leukemia.
Wow.
And I was one of two kids. I have a little brother. And I realized it was just me, my brother, and my mom. And I felt in that moment like, oh man, life is short. There's no guarantees. And yes, I had this epiphany of like, okay, let's make something happen. But I also had a lot of fear at that time when I was a young kid. So I'm living life. I'm kind of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm
Yeah.
looking back, I'm realizing I was very reactive. I was trying to have a lot of control over my life. I was being very reactive. And at some point that stops working for you.
Mhm.
Being reactive to life it wasn't the way forward for me. And so my awareness began with, God, I'm struggling in my teens. I'm struggling in my early 20s to really like create the life that I want. What
Yeah.
what needs to happen? And I realized I had to stop feeling like a victim to my circumstances.
Mm.
And I needed to take charge in one way or the other. And I guess it was a slow burn. You kind of start to figure this out slowly. But it was the fact that there wasn't anybody who was going to come in and save me, anybody who was going to come in and fix things for me. I was the only one who could really do that for my life.
Yeah. How'd you do that then? Because I'm sure people feel similar at times. It's helplessness. I can't do anything. Why even give the energy and try? But then when you start waking up to the fact of like, all right, look, I gotta work on this because if I do, it can get better. If I don't, there's no guarantee that it works out. But at least I know that I'm giving the effort to it. What did it look like for you to give that energy? Did you face internal friction? Did you face external friction? Like, what was that journey like?
It was a moment when I was in my 20s. I had just graduated from my graduate program, Chinese medical school, had everything I needed resource wise. And still, I was in like the lowest place I'd ever been. And you look at it on paper and you're like, what is the problem with this girl? Like, she's she's got what she needs and there's all these opportunities for her. Why is there this feeling of depression and anxiety and stuckness? And I think for me, it took getting to a really low point. It took realizing that, I was you hit a bottom and there's really only the only direction you can go is up. And it was looking in the mirror and saying, like, life is short and you're not taking advantage of it. Um, it was realizing that I could stare at my ceiling every night and feel sorry for myself, or I could do something about it. So it wasn't pretty. I didn't really like who I was becoming. And I didn't like that I was complaining. I didn't like that I was feeling like a victim. I don't like that feeling of helplessness. And so, I mean, to be frank, I was kind of sick of myself.
Hmm. I've been there. That's it. It's human, right? Now you
So
have
that
this
spurs
point.
on some action. That spurs on some like,
Definitely
okay,
now.
what do I need to do here?
Yeah, because that's the thing is most people get to that point. I've been to that point, and it doesn't mean you move. Sometimes people distract themselves by drugs or alcohol or people.
Yeah.
They know that it's always there, and it just the we'll call it. I think existential vacuum is what Viktor Frankl calls it in Man's Search for Meaning. And you
Hmm.
pull the wrong things, but you obviously pull the right things in. I don't know when or how, but like, can you take us through that process? Because at a certain point, I want to get to the level like, how did this become the thing that you hop on stage and unpack for people?
Yeah. Well, okay. So you have a choice. You can numb and distract, or you can take some action. And I think for me, I knew I wanted a couple of big things. I wanted to have an impact. I've always wanted to have an impact on people, whether it was through, medicine or speaking or coaching or whatever. I wanted to be of service to people. And I always felt a connection to that. So choosing to move in that direction wasn't that hard of a choice for me because it was just always something that I wanted to do. The other thing that I wanted a great relationship. I wanted a big love in my life. And at the time when I was just in that really low place, I still had not come out to my friends and my family as being a gay woman. So I was essentially hiding and lying about who I was. And I was 30 years old. So I felt a lot of shame and guilt in that. But I knew that there was just this moment, like if I didn't come to if I wasn't honest with my people and myself, I would never get to a place that I liked. I would never have the big love. I would never have the opportunities I wanted. And when you feel what could be lost by, staying where you are, sometimes that feeling of that potential regret, that was enough for me to move me into a place of action.
Yeah, I've heard a couple times. Somebody once says, we rarely count the cost of an action. Like we'll actively talk about the things that I could get this, but like we don't pay attention. If I do nothing, what is that going to cost me in the long run? What do I stand to lose, and how does it all fall apart? So I love that you had the mentality because it's one that actually moves in a good direction. What did it look like for you then? Because for us, we all have different personalities, different experiences, different choices to do stuff. You have this moment, you go, okay, I can move in some direction. What do you choose to do? Because it led us here, and that's where I want to get to is how do we get here, right? Because
Yeah.
that's really the idea, and I want you to get us there because I want someone listening to go, oh, I never thought of that, and then they can then apply something to their lives.
Well, for me, it was doing a lot of the hard things that I've been pushing off for a long time. So
Okay.
it started with having a lot of hard conversations with my friends and family, coming
Mm,
out to my community. That's where it began. And then choosing the next hard thing. And the next hard thing was, starting leaving the practice that I was in that was really toxic and
mm,
moving into a space that was very scary, but
mm,
felt like I was going to have the opportunity to grow, the opportunity to
mm.
learn.
Why was it
The
scary?
next what was scary about it?
Yeah.
You're on your own. There's just a vast field of unknownness.
Yeah.
And to me, that feels really uncomfortable.
Me too.
But I just felt like I felt like it you have to move despite the fear.
Yeah.
If you
Courage.
don't move, you're stuck. I didn't want to be stuck.
Mhm,
My dad died when he was 34 years old. And I kept
mm,
thinking to myself, what he would have given for just a little bit more time. And I didn't want to be the person who was
yeah,
50 or 60 years old and said, God, Steph, why didn't you move? Why
mhm,
did you let your fear hold you back from all these things that you could have been? You could have been great,
yeah.
right?
Mhm. I get it.
That, re-
I
that
live in that
regret
now.
scares the hell out of me.
Same here. Because I'm in an active dance with I have the ability to do great things in this world. Not that I don't, but beyond what I choose to do. However, I have such a heavy drive to like I want to be home. I can't wait to wake up at 5 in the morning with my son in his off season for football. I do track practice with my wife. Like there's little time for me to work in a work day than people actually understand. But at the same time, I get a lot done in those hours. And I do question like, am I going to be able to get done what I'm supposed to do with my skills I was given to be here? And I go, I think at the end of the day, it's a matter of am I serving the people I love most? And so there is a dance for me too of like, I don't want to get to 50. I go, gosh, I done more, because I just would suck. But at the same time, I think my juxtaposition of that is going, I don't want to get to 50 and go, I did more for the world, but not more for my world.
Ugh, that's like my constant battle is
Mm,
to be reassessing where should I be putting my energy and how do I achieve the right kind of balance. It's not
mhm,
always going to be like a 50-50 balance, but how do I
mhm.
find that right balance where I'm pouring into the relationships and the connections that I have? Because that's what people talk about at end of life.
Always.
I wish I would have poured into my relationships more.
Mhm.
And then also really tapping into the potential that we have as a human.
Yeah.
It is a dance.
Yeah.
And so it's constant reassessment for me also. But that's a big part of the message is to be impact ready. And that's what I call it, being ready to impact, be impact ready. It is preparing yourself to have impact. Also looking at how you optimize your time. How do you take care of your energy? What kind of energy do you want to bring into a space?
Mm.
All of that plays into it because, again, whether you know it or not, you're having an impact on your kids when you walk in after a long day of work and you
Yeah.
snap at them because you're tired, and you're having an impact when you're on a stage.
Yeah.
So you have to be ready for all these different situations.
Even strangers. My wife told me yesterday,
The
she's like, a lot of,
barista.
yeah, everybody, like just wherever you go. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was in a place yesterday and some lady's like, you look like my friend Sterling. I'm like, Sterling? She's like, Sterling. Or no, was it Snelling? Snelling was his name. I go, Snelling. And this is just 5:15 in the morning because I dropped my daughter for swim and I went to Pete's Coffee to work. And in my head, I'm like, I don't feel like hearing about Snelling, but I'm like, what's Snelling like? I had a fun little conversation. But yeah, imagine if I'd have been a butthead to her at 5:15 in the morning, how the rest of her shift would have went, And people
Oh,
do that.
man.
Would have sucked. I was like, nah, I said, Stellan must be a good looking guy, just messing around, hanging out. But then like, she's joyous. And so from there, I remember like the next 5 people that walk in, good morning, like she's in a joyous mood. If I'd have took her joy like that, would have sucked. But that could have been the impact I had if I wanted to be a different person. Hey, what would it be like if you could, in fact, speak on a stage and serve countless hearts and minds, but get paid to do so? Make an amazing impact in the world of a standing ovation and someone pays you to do it. That is the goal for us in our Speak to Freedom coaching program. We have entry-level information and programs for those that are just getting started, ideally. And we have programs for those who are already making 5,000 to 10,000 plus per keynote. The idea is we want to help you get great at getting onto stage. So if you want to figure out how you can get on a stage for the first time or raise your rates or be able to make it a full-time career that goes into coaching, speaking, consulting, all that stuff, but really live a life of pure freedom, but amazing impact, I want you to go to speaktofreedom.com, take a look at what we do, and then hop in, because I love to serve at that level and I can't wait to serve you. That's it. SpeakToFreedom.com. Let's get back to the episode.
Another piece to this is because we're always influencing, we're always having this energetic interaction with people, it becomes exponential. It spreads, right? And that's something that I think people really miss. They forget the power of this like compounding effect. So what you were saying, like if you wouldn't have had a great interaction with her, think about the impact she would have had on those 5 people. And that's something that I notice in all the time. I mean, okay, so for example, when you're teaching a spin class and you got people coming in at 6 a.m. and they're tired and they're kind of grumpy, if you can't turn it around as the instructor, you got 50 people going out in the world having that sort of low frequency impact. But man, if you could turn it around and really raise the vibration in that room and then they go out in the world, think of how exponential that is.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I thought about for all 10 years that I was teaching. I mean, you just see this and you see so many examples of it every day.
I agree. It's kind of the way that the world's a mirror to you. So if you're having a bad day, it's maybe because you decided to wake up on the wrong side of the bed. You gave something to the world and the world gave it back. Like, why's your buddy being so mean today? Like, because you're kind of a butthead too, man.
Yeah.
But yeah. So we have a situation of being impact ready. You then decided, you know what? I obviously yourself, you become impact ready. You go through this process and journey of doing so. How do we get to the point of you saying, you know what? I want to bring this to the world? Because again, it's this level where you can experience this. And a lot of people have this kind of growth, but not everybody goes, you know what? I want to take it to the rest of the world. I heard this really cool thing recently, and I'll let you take over from here. And someone goes, you know, the plum tree doesn't actually consume plums. The peach tree doesn't consume peaches. The banana bush doesn't eat the bananas. And what it means is the tree simply absorbs the water, but it creates something for the passerby to get nourished from. The fruits of its labor aren't for it. And it goes, doesn't matter what you're in. Sometimes you could be in just dark, dirty soil, but create something the world loves, and it may not be for you. And so I like the idea of like how us as individuals who are speakers, you know, we go through the muck and the mud and it's dirty, you know, and all we have is like just water, boring water. But then we produce these gavas and kiwis and just beautiful fruits for the world to consume that they're not for us, they're for somebody else. So you obviously did your journey of whatever, and you're deciding to give this fruit back to the world. What does that look like?
I mean, I don't know if anybody ever really knows what their gift or their message is going to be until it just sort of comes out of them, right?
Yeah.
I was always a really observant kid. I was an intuitive kid. I read the room. I pay attention to people's energy. And so it's always been top of mind for me. I don't know that I always had the language of impact or being impact ready, but to observe that and be cognizant of how people affect other people and how they affect the world, that was always running in the back of my mind. That was the loop that I was on all the time. And I think just working with people for so many years, for 15 years, I've been working with people in professional settings, one-on-one spaces. So when you hear so many people's stories and you start to see what they struggle with and what really moves them and what gets them into action, I think it was just a natural progression of understanding people. And something that people forget so easily is how powerful they are, how influential they can be. We forget that we're capable and resourceful and whole. And when people remember that and you see that light bulb go off in them, man, it is beautiful. It is like, it's like a little miracle. And so to be able to talk about that and try to get a group of people to that place, that feels like my purpose at this point in time. That's where I am.
Yeah, it's a special thing because they don't even know it's there, and then they're awakened to it. It's the idea that you don't know what you don't know. If you don't know, you don't know it, and then once you know it, it's like, oh man, you know, it's a sense like my kids. It's interesting to watch it in them, and I take it at this: my kids aren't in the same lifestyle as me. I grew up in craziness, and they didn't have to deal with that, thankfully. But I do wish they had more like personal agency to go do stuff. And I go, you know what the thing is there's a certain gift you get when you realize that what you want, you can go get. But there's a stage before that they didn't get a gift of. And the gift was difficulty. So when I was growing up, my thought was, man, I can't get this thing because, whatever, maybe because I have to make money to get it. And I don't have money. So if I want this, I have to go get this thing. Now, it's interesting thing is once that's a reality, okay, if I want this new bike, new skates, I have to go get it. Okay, cool. The second realization is, but I can. I can go mow lawns.
Yeah.
I can get a paper route. I could sell candy at school. I'm like, shoot, so I can,
Hmm.
if I'm going to get it, if I'm going to get it, it's on me, but I can go get it. The second one's the powerful one. But my kids, if they want it, their first thought is, let me ask mom and dad. And so they don't go to the second stage because there's no need to
Oh,
go
yeah.
there. So most people don't get that realization of how powerful they are, right? So if you can go somewhere else to get your solution and you don't go inside, it's like you miss out on that power. So you're essentially giving people the sense of like, hey, yeah, if it's gonna happen, it's to be on you, but listen, you can do it. And then
Yeah.
open doors.
There was somebody who said to me a long time ago, I was in high school. It was probably, I would think they saw that I was struggling and they said, you know, you'll never meet a strong person who's had an easy life. And I know they were trying to encourage me at the time to get through whatever was going on. But I think about that and I realize everybody has their hard. Everybody has their stuff. And my goal, I think through whatever it is that I'm doing, I want people to remember that they have the ability to get through it. They have the strength. Even if they don't realize it, it's something that's there. You can tap into it. And if it's not there right away, you can cultivate it.
100%. Because the thing is, we all have everything's been made by people with brains and toes and feet and breathe.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. It's just somebody took a step in a different direction and took another step and took another step and then developed into something cool. So being impact ready, like how have you seen this in the work you've shown up to do in the world? Like how have you seen this affect people's lives?
Well, I come at it from kind of a holistic perspective because I think when you're looking at any person, you have to consider the whole picture of them. So their mental and emotional health, their physical health. And so a lot of what I teach and speak about is how do you shore up all of those different elements? And
Mhm.
even just by shoring up your physical health, by optimizing your sleep, your nutrition, your movement, when you can increase your energy by 2 points, go from a
Mhm.
5 out of 10 to a 7 out of 10, it just opens up an entire new world of opportunities for people. And then you get them
Yeah,
from a 7 to a 9, and all of a sudden they're functioning at a completely different level. So that's one way. The mental emotional stuff also, again, it's about becoming a better thinker. It's about learning how to take ownership in your life so that you don't feel like you are beholden to everybody else to make your life right, or that you are a
mhm,
victim to your circumstances. When you start to understand that through practice and strategies and just, integrating it over time, it's like it's freedom. It's
yeah,
freedom from a lot of the pain and the struggle that we feel that we sort of put on ourselves.
I agree.
So it's holistic. You have to look at everything, but
Mhm.
there's so many different ways to get there. There's so many different ways to improve your impact.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of figuring out which ones are the ways, put energy into it, and rocking and rolling. It's almost like you find the answer to what you need on the path to it, not trying to figure out what the path is. Sometimes I don't know if that's
And
the
also
perfect way to
thinking
put it.
about, where do you struggle? Like,
Yeah, being honest.
where are you suffering? Where are you struggling? Because when you can look at that, you can say, okay, well, what's that about? Oh, well, I'm so tired all the time. All right, we can figure that out,
Yeah,
right?
hmm,
I'm unprepared all the time. Well, okay. I'm in stress all the time. Okay, well, we can talk about how to get you out of stress, right?
yeah. You
So,
can. You have to drop the ego to do it. I don't. I think as much as people like the idea of change, being open to change is different. It's one thing to want it and being open to it. It's crazy.
well, and not I don't know that everybody's ready to receive the message,
True.
but I think part of our jobs is to just
Hmm.
encourage people to move in that direction. Even if they're not there right now, it's a series of conversations that might get people to become a little bit more aware, might wake them up to the fact that, like, hey, man, you're being a jerk. You're not
Yeah.
owning your stuff.
Seriously.
You're not bringing good energy to the room.
Yeah. People tell, and it's funny is the individuals who have the ability to open their minds to hear that without it being a personal attack. Because the problem is when you feel like it's a personal attack, you fight back. When you fight back, you close doors. But if you can have somebody tell you something and you actually sit with that and then and take your emotions away for a moment and go, hey, is there any validity to what they're saying? And if you find someone and go, oh, It sucks, but you're right. Well, now what happens is you give yourself the opportunity to improve something. And what you don't realize is the improvement. It's not saying, well, they were right. It's saying you get to live right. And that's
Yeah.
better. I get to live right, do right, experience better, less problems, less headaches, more joy, more fun, better relationships. It's not about whether or not that's like my kids. Try to give them lessons and go do this, but I think they're apprehensive because it's my idea. And I go, yeah, but I'm right. And it'll make you right. Don't worry about like whether or not I'm right. Worry about living right, because that's what's going to make you have more joy, more success, more everything.
Yeah. Nobody wants to be wrong. I mean, that's a
True.
bad feeling. There's a lot of shame and guilt culturally that we experience for not having all the answers and,
Just weird.
for the mistakes that we made and the shortcomings that we have. And I think a big part of all of these messages is, look, we all are in this pool of humanity. We are all showing up with our imperfections.
Yeah.
Just to be able to be open and curious and try to be on a path to expansion like that's pretty fun. When you can say like, hey, we're all on the path to expand, we're all on the path to improvement and getting better. We're all screwing up along the way.
Yeah.
Me included, over and over again. Like
Yeah.
that's where the humanity is.
I agree. It's that idea of don't take life so serious. None of us get out of it alive. Like you do,
True.
you take it serious.
True.
Yeah, it's like it's gonna. I don't know. I find that for me, when I look at there's a level of which I have to be very serious. I'm not going to misconstrue that. I got to lock in when I work with my clients. How I show up on stages, that matters. That's me showing up for somebody else. But for me, I'm like, all right. Yesterday, was it yesterday? It was yesterday. No, Monday. My wife and I went out. We had to do a circuit at the track, and I wore these gray sweats. I guess I don't know. It's kind of this weird like meme that like guys wearing gray sweats. Anyways,
Yeah.
but
I'm like, oh no, here we go.
not like that. We're at the track though, and sure enough, I sweat. I'm a sweater, and so like I got butt sweat in the middle of it. She's like, "Oh, you got butt sweat." I go, "I don't even care." She's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "Obviously, I'm working out, and if I'm walking in the Safeway like this, it's a problem. The grocery store is probably not a great place to have all this butt sweat going on." I'm like, but I'm wearing a weight vest. I'm at the track. I'm running and jumping. It's okay. But there's this thing of like, I'm not going to take myself all that serious. It's not that big a deal. And I think you actually open yourself up to better people, because people who are like that, they see people like that and they go, "You're one
Yeah.
of mine." And then there's this better communication. And then also when you do that, it's like you don't have to onboard so many of these negative emotions that don't do much. Because again, you're a mirror, and if you bring that in, now I'm all tightened up, and then I do something odd, and then it's all back and forth. It's like, my day. Why? Because I butt sweat. That's just weird. Like you're
Yeah.
gonna be okay. I get
Well,
it.
and the truth is like, I think people struggle with self-doubt a lot. Self-doubt has been
Mhm.
a huge issue for me. All through my life, I struggled with a lot of self-doubt. So it's a really common experience. But I
Mhm.
realized nobody cares if
No,
you fail. People just
no,
don't care about you that much. They might care for like 5 days, maybe if you're
yeah,
famous, but they just
yeah,
don't care that much. They're just worried about whether or not they're going to fail.
yeah.
So to be able to release some of that, God, that is freedom too. And it allows you to have more powerful impact when you stop worrying so much and you release a lot of that fear,
It really
levity.
does. I agree. In the work that we do also, we step out and we sometimes may have thoughts and ideas that are away from the norm or away from somebody's norm. Like I know for me in the dark work brand, there will be a portion of my humanity that comes out to the public. Not that I hide myself by any means. This is me. This is my cadence. But this isn't the guy that built my business. Like this isn't the
Yeah.
guy that got in the football field. There's a
Mm,
certain guy that when things get hard, I got to activate him because he doesn't let me have excuses. He doesn't let me take it easy. He doesn't let me, take the easy route. So that guy has to come out because he's helped me build. So I go, if I'm really going to gift people something special, it's to have that guy behind you. More of like the David Goggins mentality, we'll call it.
oh, yeah.
But that version of me existed. The reality is that person has to come out. And when you bring that person out, like it carves a different path. But I realize I'm going to bother some people. It's going to get under some people's skin. And if I worry about whether or not somebody likes me and I'm worried, I won't be the person I need to. But here's also, I heard Elon Musk say this like 2 or 3 days ago in some clip. He goes, the biggest weakness that I believe someone can have is being worried about what somebody else thinks of you and adjusting yourself because of it.
Yeah.
It's like, how weak is that? That somebody else who doesn't even care about you, you think about it and you change. He's like, I think it's the biggest form of weakness. And I look at it because dude's a weirdo. Like he's just a weird dude. He's successful. He's intelligent. He's just a weird guy. And I go, but his weirdness has created rocket ships and companies and vehicles people drive around. Right. So it's
Yeah.
interestingly wild how he just doesn't care what you think about what he's going to do. And I go, that's the key. If we could just
Well,
function, it'd be different.
that, I mean, when you are struggling with your sexuality and you don't come out until you're 30 years old, that's what
Mm,
it is. You're worried about what other people think and you
yeah.
change who you are.
Mm,
And, we can become experts at that. Like a DJ at a board, we can just be adjusting all the levels and just
yeah.
mixing all day long, depending on who we're in front of. And there comes a point where you're like, I lost myself.
Yeah.
I
I
don't
get
want
it.
to keep going like that. And that was definitely true for me. And so when people come to, coaching, when they come to the table with, hey, I'm worried about what people think. I'm like, I see you, man. I see you.
Mm,
I
yeah.
see you, my friend. Of course you do.
Yeah.
Let's get you some freedom from that, because on the other side, you get to live this really big, beautiful, authentic life that you wouldn't have access to otherwise. And I understand.
Mhm.
So that's a big part of the message too, is you want to have impact. You're not going to please everybody. Not everybody's going to like you.
True. It's the natural part of it. You have to find the place that, and I'll end on this, is if somebody doesn't know you enough to hate you, they'll never know you enough to love you.
Interesting.
Difficult to think of it because there's a certain depth. I mean, here's the thing. Like is different than love, though.
It
I can like
is.
somebody and not 100% know them. But love is like, I'll battle for you. Like, I'll put
It's a
my neck
different
on the
level.
line for you, you know?
Yeah.
And I have to know you. I have to know the things that I agree with, you agree with, that you disagree with, I disagree with. Like, there's a sense of connection there. And if I don't express enough of who I truly am for the world to see it and be okay with someone going, I hate you, you're not my people. But somebody else goes, oh, cool, yeah, but they're mine. Like, that's the
Yeah.
thing. That's an expression piece. If people want to get more of you, hang out, maybe look at booking you for a speech, where would I send them?
They can go right to my website, stephsaffer.com. I'm also on Instagram, steph.saffer. So that's where you can find me. I'm out and about in the world. I am so excited to get people feeling empowered.
I love it. Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you so much for hanging out and coming and
It's an
speaking.
honor. I appreciate
Yeah.
being here, Anthony. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. You guys who are tuned in right now, thank you so much for hanging out with us. You could have been anywhere in the world doing a whole bunch of things, but you chose to come and hang out with us, and it's appreciated. Two things. One, go to stephsaffer.com. Go look at what she does. It sometimes just needs, you need to peruse something and see it, and then go, oh, this is mine. I connect with it. And if you already connected with her, just go there, open a conversation. Second thing, if you know someone who needs to hear things that she said, simply share the episode. I mean, a lot of the things that I come across that I just mentioned here, it's because I saw it because somebody shared it or they sent it directly to me, and it opens my mind and expands what I need to do and thought wise that maybe that person couldn't reach me with themselves. So sometimes Steph can be the one that reaches that person you can't. Outside of that, go into the world. And if you want to, become a speaker, serve the world, and speak to freedom. And if not, enjoy a life of freedom from the words we share here. That's it. It's Anthony Trucks and Steph Saffer signing off.
Thank you so much.
That's a wrap for today's episode of the Speak to Freedom podcast. I hope you found our discussion inspiring and informative. Now, if you enjoyed today's episode and want to stay updated on all our future releases, be sure to hit the subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform. Thank you for tuning in today. Until next time, remember to speak with confidence and clarity so you can one day soon speak to freedom. See you in the next episode.